The Anvil rock is making its way back into Rust next week, and it's been gone for a long time. So in this video, we're going to go over how to get on top of it and how to build a base across all three of the rocks that form it. There's still a whole week until this is released with the world update, so there might be some things that change, which is just something to keep in mind, as well as you can build whatever you want on here. I'm just showing you an example of how I figured out how to get on top of the rock and what you can do once you're up there. So this most left rock, you're able to climb all the way up, and then once you've built a base on top of the rock, it becomes difficult to climb up, which I'll show you how you can do it without building in a minute. And then once you're at the top, you're going to have to build a bridge between this left rock and the anvil. You could decide to go straight up the anvil by building or by laddering or something, and you'll have to also remember the TC privilege between these three rocks will overlap if your foundations are extended too close to the other rock before you get a TC down on it. So what you're going to want to do is maybe play around on a build server and figure out what you're going to build on here, or just get a foundation down in the center of each of these rocks with a TC on it. But we'll talk more in depth about that once I start building in a minute. So you can see here in this example, I've bridged my way between the anvil and this rock on the left, and then I've built a staircase up on this left rock. And the reason for that is because I've discovered a way that you can climb up this left rock without building at all, but you can't do that on the anvil or the rock on the most right. So by jumping on this ledge, walking around until this corner, you can stand on that corner and then jump up to the next level. And from here, there's a ledge over here that you can jump onto, and you can climb up this shadowy area towards the center of the rock and make your way to the top. This does require a little bit of skill. And then from here, we're going to have to kind of like align our foundations with the anvil. So you can see here how we're pointing it towards it and trying to align it in a way that we're going to be able to build on it in line with this base that we're building on this first rock, so that they match up once they touch together, because it's going to be two separate bases that we build towards each other. We have a very limited space to build here, and I'm using that square as a way to place these triangles down accurately. And on top of the triangles, we have 4 half walls, which create enough stability for us to be able to build a 2x2 bridge across these rocks. Also, I'm building it directly in stone. You want to do this with twig first. That's kind of just an obvious thing I figured. So you're going to build with twig up, and I'm using a door frame here to make me go a little higher so that I can make that jump over to the anvil. And that's how we're getting over here with no ladders and no building. And on this anvil rock, you'll see this square area, which almost perfectly fits a 2x2. So I'm going to start with the 3 triangles that form the honeycomb of a 2x2 and just build my normal starter base on top of this rock. And you'll notice I'm not able to fit everything that I want, and I'm going to have to creatively build around that, and so will you. So at this point, you should still be building everything in twig. I'm only upgrading it so I can mention what it is. So we've got our starter base on the anvil, and we've got our bridge that's forming from the leftmost rock. And now we're going to be building out foundations just so we get an idea of what we're working with here and how we're going to connect everything together. It's pretty difficult to make the jump over to this third rock, so you're going to need to calculate how you're going to do that and try to get as close to the edges as possible, which is also what we're going to have to do on this side to connect these bridges together. And if you are upgrading your foundations, also keep in mind you're going to want an oil refinery up here, and it's nice to include it in a jump up like this. So this is the part that's quite complicated and is going to confuse a lot of people, especially newer builders. You need to have your foundations and stuff aligned with how you're going to bridge across the bases. So you can see in this case, I'm not able to do the thing with the double foundation so that I have enough stability to create a 2x2 bridge, which means I'm probably going to have to alter both of these sides multiple times until I configure them in a way that looks nice or leaves no gaps from the outside to the inside of the base. And don't worry, they don't need to be aligned perfectly. Basically, what I did was figure out, okay, what can I fit on the edge of both of these rocks? And it's basically 3 triangles on both sides, and I do the same thing with the 2x2 to connect them together, but it's going to be a little wonky. Over time, after you've built multiple iterations of these types of bridges, it becomes a lot easier to do. And on this side, I recommend either making this your starter or keeping it really small because it's a part of your starter base, and you're going to want to get it upgraded so you can go up and down from the ground to the top into your base. Also, if the connection between these two bases is overlapping, it's going to cause some issues. Now that we kind of figured out our starter base and this bridge base, we're going to throw our TC down over here and conceal it somehow, and I'm just going to throw it in here with a quarter wall so we can access it. Then we're going to head over to our starter base, get a TC down, and start expanding. If you are building out your starter base on the anvil, just remember not to build too close to the third rock, but you should be building out in twig and then destroying it so you kind of get an idea of what you're going to do, and then you can reduce the building privilege from your starter base base by destroying the twig, allowing you to place a TC on this third rock, which we're going to do in a minute here. So now that we have a general idea of what's going on around the anvil, we're going to build out towards the bridge side and just mess around with it until we get something that connects together nicely. So what I figured out is that by placing 2 lower triangles at the end over here, I'm able to create enough stability to bridge over to it the way that I want to by placing half walls and filling it in like I was building honeycomb. This is definitely going to vary person to person and even wipe to wipe depending on how you build it out. And you can see here, I just for some reason am not able to place a square foundation for this 2x2 bridge that I want. But now that I've got more stability from those 2 lowered foundations, I can connect the bridge like this. And we can make it look a little nicer by destroying this square right here and walling this off instead. And since these are 2 different bases, you're going to want to have an airlock on either side of them that you either control with electricity or that you just close manually. And unless we create more stability with half walls, we're not going to be able to build on this center square, which is okay because we can use the double doors on both sides to create a lock from the outside. And I think it looks really nice with the shop fronts here, but you could just place regular walls or windows. What we can do to seal this off is build a double door frame on one of the sides and a roof on top of it, and then you've got a pretty closed off area, and you can put some shotgun traps in that gap. We're not able to build anything over there because the corner of one of those squares is overlapping with another one from the other base. But now that we've got this bridge and airlocks between the 2 bases, we can figure out what the heck we're going to do with this third rock over here, and I suggest building this one as a larger tower / flank base that you can store kits in and defend your base if by chance you ever get online raided. And then by destroying all this extra twig, we can reduce the building privilege from our starter base, allowing us to place a TC over here. And you can see this is a bad example of not allowing myself enough space because that is the closest that I could get my TC, even though my starter is still kind of far away. So we're going to do the same thing we did on the other side by creating stability with half walls and full walls, allowing us to build a 2x2 bridge across. And that one I would leave open to the air and use it as a minicopter landing pad and put a garage in the bottom of a tower on that third rock. And at this point, you could still have everything in twig and figure out where all your TCs are going to go and only upgrade the TCs on all 3 of these rocks and expand from them later. But now we got to worry about how the heck are we going to get back up now that our old way is blocked by the base. So what we can do before expanding the base is build stuff out of wood over here, and you can clip that foundation into that rock if you wiggle it around enough, because there's enough room that all 3 corners of it touch the rock, which allow you to build foundations on it. And then from here, it's pretty easy building the rest of the way up, and I'm upgrading this to wood because it's going to decay over time and you're going to have to rebuild it throughout the wipe. And the only way around that is to start from the bottom far enough away that you can place another TC and then building from that TC up to the side of the rock, which is kind of something that I would just rather not do. Just upgrade it to wood, it'll last long enough and you can replace it if it ever decays. Now we've bridged all 3 of these rocks together with 3 different bases that feel like it's all one unit. I would recommend building your main base on the Anvil rock because it's got the most space, obviously. Keep this bridge and the base connected to it small so that, you know, because this is the first place you build, you want it to be cheap so you can get it down and upgrade it right away. Maybe turn it into a tower later. On this first rock, you're going to have enough stability to build quite tall. You could probably get, you know, built up for a wind turbine over there, but on the third rock, once you progress far enough to build over there, you can get more foundations down and build a secondary base that's quite large. So this is just my experience and what I figured out on the Ox 2 staging branch before this was released, so that you could get up on top of the rock at the beginning of the wipe without needing ladders or having to build your way up there in a crazy way. That's all I got for you guys today. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike if you didn't, and I'll catch you in the next one.
Join the Crucible grounds today, the ultimate test of your survival and skills in us.